Our next presenter is Barbara O'Neill. Now, Barbara lives in Australia, and she has an in-depth knowledge on how the human body works. She is known for her health work and research, and she fundamentally believes that the human body can naturally restore and heal itself. Barbara is a health lecturer, and she travels the globe, and she has a passion in life work, which lies in educating people in the correct health principles to stay away from sickness and disease. Barbara, we're so excited to have you here today. Please come and share with us how we can better our lives.
Tis so sweet to trust in Jesus, just to take Him at His word, and just to rest upon His promise, and just to know thus saith the Lord. Jesus, Jesus, how I trust Him, how I proved Him more and more. Oh, Jesus, Jesus, precious Jesus. Oh, for grace to trust Him more. How sweet to trust in Jesus, just to trust His cleansing blood, just in simple faith to plunge me neath the healing cleansing flood. Oh, Jesus, Jesus, how I trust Him, how I've proved Him o'er and o'er. Jesus, Jesus, precious Jesus, oh, for grace to trust Him more. And oh, I'm so glad I've learned to trust Him. Precious Jesus, Savior, friend. And I know that He is with me, and will be with me till the end. Oh, Jesus, Jesus, how I trust Him, how I've proved Him more and more. Oh, Jesus, Jesus, precious Jesus. For grace to trust Him more. Jesus, Jesus, how I trust Him, how I've proved Him o'er and o'er. Jesus, Jesus, precious Jesus. Oh, for grace to trust Him more.
Good morning. I'd like to welcome everyone to this series that we're going to be looking at today. We're going to be looking at the human body and its amazing ability to heal itself. The human body was designed to heal itself, and it will heal itself if you give it the right conditions. Now notice there was a little two-letter word in there, if. The human body will heal itself if you give it the right conditions. It needs those conditions. Every surgeon knows that he can stitch a wound together, that's part of the condition, but he cannot heal the wound. Every orthopedic surgeon knows that he can set a bone. Sometimes he just puts it in place and then it's set in a cast. Sometimes it needs to have pins and plates. What did they do before surgery? Pins and plates. They had their ways. There was a way to set it. There were herbs that helped with the healing. But all know that they cannot heal. The human body and the human body alone has the power to heal itself. I believe everyone should be their own doctor, because only you know how you feel, only you know what you've been through, and only you know how your body responds or reacts to the different things that we might apply to the human body. I say to people, I can advise, but it's now up to you to observe how your body reacts. Let me give you some very simple illustrations. If we're cold, we put a jumper on, or maybe in the US you'll say jacket. If we're hot, we take it off. If our feet hurt on the rocky ground, we'll put some shoes on. These are signs from the body. At the end of the day, when the sun goes down, and that's one of the signs to our brain, it's actually time to start winding down for sleep. And we go to sleep. These are very simple things. We're hungry, we'll eat. We're thirsty, we'll drink. We all know these very simple things, but let's go one step further. What about if there's pain in the body? Well, if there is pain, then you begin to investigate. Newton's third law of motion states that to every action there is an equal and an opposite reaction. There is always a reason. It's called Sir Isaac Newton's third law of motion. But it's God's law, and it was already laid out in the Bible. Let me give you a few verses. We've got Galatians 6 verse 7, where the Bible says, "Be not deceived, God is not mocked. Whatsoever a man soweth, that he shall also reap." Also, Proverbs 26 verse 2, "The curse causeless shall not come." In other words, no curse, no problem happens without a cause. And in Job 29:16, the Bible says, "The cause I knew not, I searched out." In the little book, it's one of my first health books and still one of my favourites, called The Ministry of Healing. On page 127 of The Ministry of Healing, Ellen White states that in case of sickness, the cause should be ascertained. It's the first step, because if you don't find the cause, you won't have a cure. If you don't eliminate the cause, you're still going to be mopping up in the background. It's like the dripping tap. Until you turn that tap off, you're still going to be mopping up. You've got to find out the cause. Now, it's not always easy, because sometimes there can be a whole lot of little threads. Not just one, or not just this one. Can you imagine this? There's a whole lot of little threads that come together to make a strong rope. And a strong man cannot break that rope. But a little tiny mouse can come along and start nibbling at the threads, and little by little, as the threads are nibbled, the rope breaks. That little tiny mouse that the strong man could just stomp on and kill. So to heal the rope, or to bind the rope back together, you've got to connect every little thread. And it's the same when people are sick, when people are not well. You need to put the detective hat on and investigate, because sometimes it's not just one thing. It's a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and it's this. My husband is a very black and white man. He says whenever he's not well, he sits down and he assesses the last 24 hours. What happened? What happened? You've heard also of the old saying, the straw that broke the camel's back. Now, a piece of straw cannot break a camel's back, but on top of a whole lot of other pieces, it can tip the scales. And that's the other old saying, it can tip the scales. I want to establish a couple of things. I want to establish, number one, that the human body can heal itself. I also want to establish, too, that if it's not well, there is a reason that it is not well. In fact, if someone says to you when you're sick, "Oh, it's just you," that defies basic science. It defies Newton's third law of motion. To every action, there's an equal and an opposite reaction. There's always a reason. What I'd like to look at in this presentation is autoimmune diseases. 20 years ago, you hardly heard it. 40 years ago, You've never heard of autoimmune diseases. You ask your grandparents, what are autoimmune diseases? Did you have them as children? No, they don't know what an autoimmune disease is. What is the definition of an autoimmune disease? The definition of an autoimmune disease is when a condition arises that the body's own immune system begins to attack healthy cells. Now, God never designed the human body to do that. He designed the human body to heal itself. And one of the tools that He uses for the body to heal itself is our immune system. Some people say, I got sick, my immune system was down, or my immune system was not strong. What is your immune system? Do you know what your immune system is? The immune system is a very interesting thing. I always like to think, what is it? What is your immune system? You might be surprised to know that the immune system is set up or established by our gut flora, our sometimes called microbiome. It's become a very important and interesting and popular study is our microbiome, our gut flora, so to speak. But it's not just our gut flora. There's about 100 trillion cells in the human body, and there are 10 times more microorganisms in the human body than cells. And there are 10 times more microorganisms in our gastrointestinal tract than anywhere else in the body. These little microorganisms, these little creepy crawlies, so to speak, are vital to have a body that's running as it should. They are vital to health, and a knowledge or an understanding of them is vital. Proverbs 14 verse 6 states that a scorner seeketh wisdom and findeth it not, but knowledge is easy to him that understands. That's why I like to begin with an understanding of how the human body works. When you understand how the human body works, you begin to understand how it heals. And remember, it will heal if you give it the right conditions. So why? Why would our body's own immune system begin attacking healthy cells? That defies reason. Why is this so? Something has happened. Something has come in and caused a disruption in the human body. Our body runs according to precision balance. And as the proverb says in several places, a false balance is not good. Well, a false balance in the body is not good. I'm not going to talk about this today, but there is a lecture that I give, you can see it on YouTube, on hormones. And I find it's often the missing link, especially in women's health, is an imbalance in the hormones. And the first thing we do is look at what causes the imbalance and how you can bring the balance back. Some of the symptoms of a hormonal imbalance are anything from breast cancer to uterine cancer to depression to heart disease to fibroids in the uterus, cysts on the ovaries. There's a whole lot of conditions, and it's not the only cause. Remember, we're getting back to those little threads? But it certainly can sometimes make up almost 50% of the threads, 50% of the reasons why these conditions arise. So an imbalance, that's an imbalance in the hormones. You can have problems happen in the body with a water imbalance, with a mineral imbalance. And if the balance is not right, the body doesn't work well. I remember when I was a single mother, many years ago now, 25 years ago, and I had to get a new tyre on my car. I would take it in, and the man would get the new tyre, and then he would put it on this machine that checked its balance. And it didn't seem to be quite balanced, so he'd get a little weight, and he'd hammer it into, or knock it into one side of the rim, and then he'd try it again. No, not quite right, and then he'd put a bit of weight on the other side till he just got it right, because if that tyre wasn't in correct balance, well, it wouldn't go very well on the car, and my car would probably go all, well, I'm a woman, I don't know much. Now, it doesn't mean that because I'm a woman I don't know much, but I guess, whereas my husband's a petrol head and loves cars, they're not really my interest. I drive a garden or knit or sew. Cool. Some ladies love cars, but it's not really my study. And so I go to the experts that know the study, but I'm pretty sure that my car would not go very well. It'd probably go all wobbly and wouldn't drive properly. So if that balance is crucial to the proper functioning of the wheel and thus affecting the car, how much more important is it for the human body to get this precision balance? We were designed to run according to precision balance. So then the next thing is, why has the balance been disrupted? Something has happened to the human body which directly affects the immune system, causing it to start attacking healthy cells in an autoimmune disease. So let's have a look at some of the names given to autoimmune diseases. Rheumatoid arthritis, Crohn's disease, colitis, eczema, psoriasis. In fact, when I was investigating some of the autoimmune disease names, I thought, well, we're just about covering almost everything here. So I'd like to have a look by giving you an illustration. We had a man come to us with Crohn's disease. What's Crohn's disease? It's similar to gastritis, colitis, inflammation of the gastrointestinal tract. And he was told he had an autoimmune disease. And because he had an autoimmune disease and his immune system was attacking healthy cells, the result was that the cells of his gastrointestinal tract were breaking down, they were inflamed, and he needed to go on cortisone. Cortisone is a very strong drug, and it stops inflammation in the body, and even to the effect of stopping that immune system eating the healthy cells. Not completely. If someone has a kidney transplant, say, or a liver transplant, they will be on these drugs for the rest of their life because they don't want their body's own immune system attacking this newcomer, the new kidney or the new liver. Can they ever get off those drugs? I do not know. I never say never. I'm amazed at what human bodies are capable of doing. What the person must do is implement everything that is required for proper functioning and watch the body's response. If the body begins to respond well, it begins to work a little bit better, then you may be able to begin very slowly reducing the medication. Cortisone, steroids, they're very strong. The body gets addicted to them and they cannot be stopped immediately. They have to be eased off very, very slowly. So I'm going to illustrate with a story. This man's name is Tom. Tom came to us, he was 40, with an autoimmune disease. He'd been diagnosed, and the symptoms of his autoimmune disease were Crohn's disease. What were his symptoms of this disease? He would go to the bathroom 10 times a day. His bowel movements were basically liquid. He said, everything just seems to go straight through me. He said, I get terrible cramping in my abdomen. He said, often I'm bleeding from the colon. He said, I don't know what to eat. He said, I've got to the point where I eat anything because it doesn't seem to matter what I eat. He said, the anti-inflammatories that I'm on, the cortisone that I'm on, it does help a little bit. But he said, my face is getting puffy, even though I'm underweight and thin, my body seems to be swelling. In the little book, Spiritual Gifts, Ellen White states that drugs never cure disease. She says they just change the form and location of. The body and the body alone is the effective healer. And if left to itself, oh, how much better could it perform its task? But that privilege is rarely granted it. She also states in other areas that a person's sick, they go to the doctor, he gives them a drug, now the body's got two evils to fight. What a drug can do, it can mask symptoms. Now notice what the writer says here, drugs never cure disease. Now I'm not talking about drugs in a crisis. Absolutely a drug can save a life in a crisis. We're not talking about a crisis. We're talking about disease. And look at the word disease. Out of ease, not at comfort. There's something wrong. And whenever there's discomfort, the body's speaking to us. It's actually saying, do something. Page 127 of the Ministry of Healing, Ellen White says, the only hope of better things is the education of people in the right principles. What she means by that is most people don't know what to do. They don't know what to do. And since allopathy has been the main form of treatment of human beings for about the last 100 years, it's almost taken away our health responsibility from us and given it to someone else. So it's listening to the body. So this man went to the doctor because he had pain, he had cramping, he had bleeding in his stools, he could not work anymore, he sometimes did not make the toilet. His body was screaming at him. So when he sat in front of me, consulting with me, in a retreat that I was running in the US, I began to investigate. I said to him, tell me, do you remember, you would not remember, but do you know what you were fed as a child? Yes, he said, my mother got mastitis and so I was put on the bottle. Well, what was the milk? It was a cow's milk. Aha. Were there any responses or reactions to that? She said, my mother said I got eczema. And when I got eczema, he said, my mother took me to the doctor who gave a cream, and this cream settled it down, but then it would raise up again. Aha. So can you see thread number one? This child had an allergy to the cow's milk. The mother didn't know what to do. So she went to the doctor, who put the baby on a drug. Now that drug is interfering with the development of this little baby's adrenal glands, the development of the kidneys, the liver. It's also quite damaging to the gastrointestinal tract. When it got really bad, his diarrhea that started to develop at the age of 2, he would be put on antibiotics sometimes. One doctor, he likened the antibiotics to dropping an atomic bomb on the human body. I'm not against antibiotics. They've saved lives for thousands of years and they will continue, but I believe they should only be kept for a life-saving event, when the life is challenged. Yes, it can save a life, but what we should be doing is nipping it in the bud. What's the old saying? A stitch in time saves 9. Start early. That's why listen to the body. If there's discomfort, do something. I have a story to illustrate that. A lady is taking her little grandson for a walk. They're walking for a couple of kilometres. They're going to visit a friend. She did not know that the little boy had a stone in his shoe. He said, my foot's sore. He's only little, he's 5. He doesn't know what's causing. And she said, shh, you'll be right, we'll be there soon. So the little boy keeps going, starts to limp a little bit. You'll be right, we're nearly there. The little boy keeps walking because he has no choice. The grandmother's hurrying him along. By the time they get to the friend's house, the little boy can't walk on his foot anymore. The grandmother has to carry him. She's very busy. She's got a lot to do. The little one's crying a little bit. He seems to have a little bit of a fever developing, and her friend says, give him a Panadol. A Panadol will get that temperature down. It's a drug, said to be a gentle drug. He's crying, and then he eventually falls asleep. When he wakes up, she notices that his foot is swollen. When he slept, he'd taken his shoe off and just had the sock on. She notices a little bit of blood on the bottom of the sock. She takes the sock off. His foot is quite swollen and there's a wound at the bottom of the foot. He wakes up crying. She looks at her friend. She said, we must take him to the hospital. They take him to the hospital and the doctor discovers there's a little stone embedded into the bottom of the little boy's foot. So the little boy is given high-dose antibiotics. He is given more drugs to try and get that temperature down. The doctor realises they will have to do surgery to get that little stone out. Now, it could all have been prevented if the grandmother had stopped and investigated why the little boy had a sore foot. He had a stone in his shoe. Often it is that simple. We've got to listen. As soon as the body makes a noise, we must listen. So let's go back to the history of Tom. Number one, dairy intolerance at a young age. Number two, regular drugs, antibiotics. He was also vaccinated. Vaccination is known also to have a fairly damaging effect on the gut flora. Let's have a look. He's developing along. The mother notices that he goes to the bathroom quite a lot. In fact, she notices that he has diarrhea quite a bit. 5, 6, 7 years of age. Often his little underpants are soiled. But the little boy's embarrassed to tell his mother, so he puts up with it for quite a long time. Let's fast forward to when the boy is 15. He's actually getting embarrassed now because sometimes he doesn't quite make the toilet. And of course that's a bad smell around his friends. So the mother finally takes him to the doctor. He's about 16 now and he's diagnosed with irritable bowel disease. He is put on some drugs to calm that down. So can you see the cycle that's happening here? The drugs, the irritation in his gut that never is seriously addressed. He continues to have cheeses and creams and butters that are irritating the lining. So when he came to me, this condition was very well established. He now had been told he had an autoimmune disease. His body was starting to attack itself. So I began to look at what we could do right now. I know that the body is designed to heal itself. I also know that there are some foods that act like kerosene to a fire on the gut. Refined sugar, and this man loved his sweets. He said he can remember from a very young age he would eat a lot of sugar. The other is dairy. It is true, in the Scandinavian mountains there are some organic dairy farms and the family eat dairy and they do well on it. It's because it's in their heritage. I'm a 5th generation Australian Scottish descent. I've never been able to handle milk. The majority of people can't. In fact, the figures I saw in one study that was reported in the newspaper that 60% of Australians can't handle dairy. When you think about it, we are the only creature that drinks another creature's milk. We are the only creature that has milk past baby. People say to me, what milk do you drink, Barbara? My answer is, I'm weaned. I eat food. Milk is for babies. And if a baby can't have breast milk, then the best milk would be from a healthy goat. You look at the size of a human baby and the size of a baby goat. They're very similar, whereas cow's milk is very thick milk, it's very concentrated milk. It's not the best for baby guts. Let's go back to the Scandinavian dairy farm. Often they would make their milk into feta cheeses, into yogurts. Those forms of dairy are almost pre-digested, so they are easier on the gut. Let's go back to Tom. We're having a look at what irritates the gut. Unbeknownst to Tom, the foods he was eating was irritating. Remember what I said earlier? It's almost as if no matter what he ate, it just went through him. So he thought, what the heck, I'll eat what I want. So the refined sugar, the dairy, and also wheat. Wheat was hybridized in the 1950s. There are some excellent books that give the story of this. Probably the most famous is Dr. William Davis's book, Wheat Belly, where he gives the history. He shows how the wheat was hybridized in about the 50s. Dr. Norman Bourlag got a Nobel Prize in, I think, 1970 for this hybridized wheat. They wanted to produce a plant with a high yield of grain. This high yield of grain was to help with the starvation crisis, and no one complains about wanting to help the starvation crisis in Africa, India, Mexico. But no safety studies were ever done. It was actually pushed through quite quickly to help with the starvation crisis. What was never addressed was the effect on the human body. And in the hybridization of the wheat, creating a plant that only grows about 2 foot tall, has a thick stem, has a very heavy yield of grain, that grain now contains a protein or a gluten structure that is incredibly complex, very difficult for the human gut to break down. Now, if a person were to eat it sometimes, eat it as a sourdough bread, and the sourdough, or the culturing process of that culture in the sourdough bread, it breaks down the protein or the gluten in the grain, makes it easier to digest. But you look at many people today, we have many people come by our health retreats. And many people, especially vegetarians, they're having cereal and toast for breakfast, sandwiches for lunch, pasta for tea, cakes, biscuits, donuts between. It's almost a 100% wheat diet. So there's an overload of wheat, but also the change of the wheat. So wheat that did not cause problem in the 50s, 60s is causing problems today. You see, this wheat went worldwide in the late 70s. By the 1990s, in most industrialised nations, every pasta, every bread, every cake, every donut, cereal, it's all made out of this hybridised wheat. So this wheat was very irritating to Tom's gut. He was eating a lot of pasta, a lot of bread, a lot of donuts, a lot of cakes, a lot of fast food. He's a bachelor, so he just goes for the fast food. Once this has stopped, it can take a couple of months for the body to respond. It's like a splinter. Well, let's go back to the little boy's stone in the bottom of his foot. The stone was taken away. The offending article was removed, but it took a long time for that foot to heal because of the damage that had been done. Same with wheat. You can stop wheat, but be patient. The full effect may not be seen for a while. This brings me to another point, patience, waiting for the body to heal itself. In Galatians 6 verse 9 it says, "Let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we will reap if we faint not." You've got to give it a little bit of time. And also it's in the book Hebrews 10:35, it says, "Cast not away therefore thy confidence, in the which is great recompense of reward, for ye have need of patience, in that after you have done the will of God, you might receive the promise." Notice the starting words of that. Cast not away therefore thy confidence. I have great confidence in this body that has been designed to heal itself. I have great confidence in the great God of heaven, who has proved himself again and again that he has created an amazing body and also given us many things to help heal, which we're going to have a look at as we look at Tom's story. Cast not away therefore thy confidence, in the which is great recompense of reward. For ye have need of patience, in that after you have done the will of God, you might receive the promise. So there's a little bit of time frame here. So Tom came to our retreat. We don't serve any refined sugar, we don't serve any dairy, we don't serve any wheat at our retreats. We have no peanuts. Peanuts are commonly known to contain mould. We also find that about 30% of our guests cannot handle oats. So also oats are out. Now if you love oats and they sit well with you, eat oats. But if you have a condition that requires healing, you might need to eliminate it for a while. Not forever, just until the body heals. In Psalm 104 verse 14, the Bible states that God gave herbs for the service of man. I love that verse because that verse defines the herbs for the service of man. When you put a herb into your body, the herb says to your body, "Where would you like me? Where would you like me to go?" But what's interesting, in every herb, God puts specific actives for different parts of the body. And there are a few herbs that directly coat, soothe and heal the lining of the gastrointestinal tract. One is aloe vera. When you open an aloe vera leaf, it's very slimy, isn't it? It's just like the lining of our gastrointestinal tract. It's a little slimy. So aloe vera can coat, soothe and heal the lining of the gut. And there is another herb called slippery elm. Slippery elm is the powdered bark of the slippery elm tree. And when you put water with slippery elm, it goes a little, you might say slimy. It's called slippery elm. I guess that's a nicer sounding word, is to say slippery. It goes a little thick. Both aloe vera and slippery elm contains growth stimulants, stimulating rapid healing in the lining of the gut. The cells that line the gastrointestinal tract are remade every 3 to 5 days. And so the gut is probably one area where you can get responses quite quickly, as you will see as I relate Tom's story. The slippery elm coats, soothes and heals the lining of the gastrointestinal tract. It also can give a little bit of firmness to the stools. Because Tom's situation was quite chronic, I added a couple of more herbs to that. So this is the mix we did. 80% slippery elm, 10% myrrh. Now myrrh is that gum resin, and it was given to baby Jesus. Remember the wise men bought the myrrh, the frankincense and the gold? Gold's expensive. Frankincense, very expensive. Tiny little bottle of frankincense essential oil cost about $70. Myrrh is also a very valuable herb. Myrrh is able to contribute to the healing, especially in the gut. The other herb is golden seal. Golden seal is given a nickname, king of tonics to all mucous membranes. And the gut is lined with mucous membranes. So it's a tonic to the mucous membrane. But something else very interesting about golden seal, it's one of my favourite herbs. Golden seal is anti-staphylococcic, it's anti-streptococcic, it's antibiotic, it's antifungal, it's antibacterial. Powerful herb. It's a very expensive herb. At one stage, when it was hard to buy, we were paying $800 a kilo. I think it's a little less at the moment. We see it as gold. It looks like gold. It is almost fluorescent yellow when it is ground up. So let's go back to this mix. 80% slippery elm, 10% myrrh, which has been ground to a powder, and 10% golden seal, which has also been ground to a powder. So this is mixed in a jar, and warm water, warm to hot water, is poured on, say, a spoonful, maybe half a cup, and then it's mixed very quickly and then drunk. The more it sits, the thicker it gets. So with Tom, we gave him slippery elm, the slippery elm mix. We call it gut repair. We gave him that mix 4 times a day. We gave it to him at about 8 o'clock, we gave it again about the middle of the day, we gave it about 6 o'clock, and we gave it again just before he went to bed. So while he's sleeping, it's coating, soothing and healing the lining of his gut. When he came to us, he was on 20 milligrams of cortisone a day. He'd been on that for a few months. He was on anti-inflammatories. He said, what will I do with my medication? I said, I don't want you to touch your medication at the moment. We're going to implement a few changes and we're going to watch to see what the body does with this. When he came to us, he was having 8 bowel movements a day. He said before he went on the cortisone and anti-inflammatories, sometimes it was 15 bowel movements a day. The first day at our retreat was juices. So every 2 hours we serve fresh vegetable and fruit juices. Most of our juices are about 80% carrot, 10% celery, 10% apple. So just juices. And one might think, isn't that going to make his bowel movements even more liquid? Well, I believe that his gastrointestinal tract needed a break. In fact, he had testified to me that he had a big flare-up when he was 30, he was hospitalised. He was on no food for a whole week, and he was fed basically by an IV. And I do know that that's what they will do sometimes, just to give this gut a rest. So the juices was giving his gut a rest. So he came to us on Sunday. He had a vegetable meal with us, lunch Sunday. His first dose of the gut repair was Sunday night. Monday morning, I went to see him. I said, how was your night? It's not unusual for him to go 4 or 5 times a night. He said, Quite good. He said, I only went 3 times last night. He said, for me, that's quite good. I talked to him at the end of Monday. I said, how are things going? He said, well, my cramping has stopped. He said, I have this terrible cramping every day. And he said, I've actually gone 6 times today instead of 8 times. So he said, I'm pretty happy. Tuesday, I said, how was your night? He said, I only got up twice last night. He had a big smile on his face. Tuesday afternoon, how was your day? He said, I've only gone 5 times today. He said, that's quite remarkable. And he said, the stools are starting to have a little bit of form. And he said, my bleeding has stopped. So Wednesday, so that was 2 days on juices. Wednesday, food begins. So I suggested that he have no raw food, that while his gut is repairing, he have cooked food. Cooked food is softer on the gut. And probably the easiest would be vegetables. I said, well, just hold off with the fruit for now. And we're also going to hold off with a lot of the grain, maybe a little bit of rice, ideally white rice. Remember, we're dealing with a very compromised raw gut there. So we had mostly vegetables. We'd soaked, rinsed very well, some legumes and put a little bit of that in. I'm watching to see how his body responds. What was quite remarkable, by Friday, he was having 4 bowel movements in that 24-hour period. And they all had a little bit of form, which was remarkable, considering he just had liquid. The bleeding had stopped and he had no cramping. He had a smile on his face so big. He was carrying around a jar. I said, what's the jar? He said, gut repair. He said, this is my gold. He was very, very excited. You remember what I said? The cells that line the gastrointestinal tract, they're remade every 3 to 5 days. So when given the right condition, the gut can respond quite quickly. In fact, it responds very quickly. Now, Tom's not healed. He's not healed yet at this point. So Friday, when we heard that the stools had a bit more form, no bleeding, no cramping, I said to him, how do you feel about stopping your anti-inflammatories? He was going to be here for another week. He said, I'm interested. Can you see when we start to consider this? We consider it when we watch that the body is responding. He stopped his anti-inflammatories and it made no difference. He still went on Saturday and Sunday 4 times a day. Now, if he had gone back to going 8 times a day, would he go back on the anti-inflammatories? Well, he's got a choice. Because his body hasn't had it for 24 hours, he could go back on half dose. But there is another option, which is the option I would advise. I said, I have no authority over your medication, only you and your doctor have. I can tell you what I would do. But if he'd started 8 times a day, I would have just started to take the gut repair, remember the slippery on golden seal and myrrh, take it every 2 hours. And what I have found is that will slow it down. Can you see I'm also teaching him? The only hope of better things is the education of people in the right principles. And the best education is experimental education, meaning you hear it, it makes sense, you try it, and your body will say, this is good. It will say, no, it is not good. If it says it is not good, it might need a little bit more herbs. It might need a little bit more time. So you always take that into the equation. Monday's looking good. I said to Tom, how do you feel about going from 20 milligrams of prednisone, down to 15? He said, I'm interested. He did. No reaction at all. If he'd stopped, I'm sure there would have been a reaction. He has to come off this slowly. When Tom went home after being with us for 2 weeks, he was going 3 times a day to the bathroom. His stools had form, still a little softer than most, but it's got form. He had no nausea. He had no cramping in his gut. He had no bleeding from his bowel. My suggestion to Tom was to keep listening to his body. I said, don't step sideways with what you have been eating. Don't do that yet. Stick to what you're doing because it's working. And the Bible says in 1 Thessalonians 5:21, prove all things and hold fast to that which is good. I gave him that verse. I said, hold fast to that which is good. It's working, do it. I said, you won't be eating like this forever, but just until you heal. When you know you're healed, he will know he's healed when he's eventually off all the cortisone, all the prednisone. And he can start eating other foods, and if everything is happy, then little by little he can introduce other foods. If he introduces other foods too quickly and he gets a reaction, maybe diarrhea, stop immediately. Go back onto the gut repair every 2 hours until it settles right down, and then we start again. Remember, nature's process of healing and upbuilding is gradual. It's gradual, and to the impatient it seems slow. Really, he has had this problem, I would like to suggest, for 40 years. It was first shown with his reaction to the formula as a baby. It took a while to develop because we live in an amazing body that endures so much, for so long. But little by little, he stuck to the program. No one could talk him out of that. And if his mate was in front of him with a plate full of donuts, he just threw his head back and laughed because he looked at that donut and you know what he thought to himself? There's the cramping again, there's the bleeding, there's the diarrhea. No thanks. No thanks. He left a very happy man. He was told that he would never heal because he had an autoimmune disease. Autoimmune diseases can manifest themselves in different ways, in many different people. And that's why you're the doctor, because your body will tell you. Your body lets you know if it's not working. Page 127 of the Ministry of Healing, Ellen White says, the only hope of better things is the education of people in the right principles. Let the physicians teach the people that restorative power lies not in drugs, but in nature. Disease is an effort of nature to free the system from conditions that arise because of a violation of the laws of health. A violation of the laws of health? Pure air, sunshine, abstemishness. I have them all illustrated here. My son is an artist. So pure air, sunshine, abstemishness, not taking anything to the body that will harm it and taking in moderation the good things. Sleep, that's when we repair, when we're sleeping, but only at night. Exercise, can you tell my son's a surfer? Proper diet, use of water, trust in divine power. These are the true remedies. It is a breaking or a violating these laws that sets up disease. And when you have a look at Tom, he basically had broken every law. He'd broken every law. He never opened his windows at night. He never exercised, and exercise is one of the best ways to get oxygen into the body. Oxygen, the most vital element needed for life. We're going to go inside the cell for a minute, and I'm going to show you why oxygen is so vital. Here is the cell. The glucose goes into the cell, and when the glucose goes into the cell, it goes through a 20-step pathway. And this 20-step pathway delivers to us 2 units of energy. The end result of the 20-step pathway is a chemical form of glucose called pyruvate. And pyruvate, as the chemical form of glucose, gets fed into the powerhouse. Now, this little 8-step pathway is often called the powerhouse because it can deliver to us 36 units of energy. How come? By the way, that's the glycolytic pathway, and this is the Krebs cycle inside of the mitochondria, for the technical amongst us. So this glycolytic pathway, this 20-step pathway, it produces energy by the process of fermentation. So it's an anaerobic pathway, no oxygen. Whereas the 8-step pathway, it uses oxygen. It's called an aerobic pathway. What a difference oxygen makes. Now, we have 100 trillion cells in our body. If every single cell in our body has enough oxygen to get down to the 8-step pathway, how are we going to feel? We're going to be jumping out of our skin with energy. Oxygen is the most vital element needed for life. You cannot heal without oxygen. Every single cell must have it to give the energy to function effectively, to function optimally, and also to heal. That's why it's the first law, I believe, pure air. Pure air is 79% nitrogen, so that's 21% oxygen, and there's a very small amount of carbon dioxide. In the city streets, it's not 21% oxygen. In fact, it is said in some city streets, it's even only 19% oxygen. So that can inhibit oxygen coming into the body. Also, posture. If we're slouched, if we're not breathing with our abdominal muscles, then that inhibits the oxygen uptake in the lungs. When we're dehydrated, our blood cells tend to clump together. Blood cells should look like this. When those blood cells go through the lungs, they pick up oxygen like a little parcel on the outside. How much oxygen does this clump pick up? Can you see the surface area that has been lost? All because a person is dehydrated. That's why water is essential. Our brain is a hydroelectric system. No hydro, no electricity. We need water. We must have water to heal. A person can get sick because they're dehydrated. There's a book called One of the Body's Many Cries for Water. Dr. Batman Geheldich is a Uranian doctor. He was a political prisoner for quite a few years. And the only thing he had was water. And he just kept giving people who were sick water and they all started getting better. It's actually a little bit more complicated than that, but that's the bottom line. He was so amazed at the response that he wrote many articles in medical journals, he gave talks at conferences, and he wrote the book, One of the Body's Many Cries for Water. He has 2 other titles to his book. He's not sick, he's thirsty. And the other title is Don't Treat Thirst with Medications. Many are sick from dehydration. We had a pathologist attend our program. He said, this is very interesting what you say on water. He said, we did studies on caffeine and we found 1 cup of coffee requires 5 glasses of water to make up for the dehydrating agents in that cup of coffee. Ooh. When you look at that, you realise many are sick because they're dehydrated. Many are sick because they're not getting pure air. Many are sick because they're not getting sunshine. The sun is not the enemy in the sky. The sun is the doctor in the sky. He is the healer in the sky. And the sunshine penetrates very, very deep into the human body. In fact, in the old days, nurses used to pull the beds out onto the veranda so the patients could get the sun. It would heal bed sores. If they had colds and flus, they would heal a lot quicker when the person got sunshine. Vitamin D is required for the body to heal itself. There are 2,500 receptor sites on the DNA for vitamin D. Many people are scared of the sunshine. Australians are well known to spend too much time in the sun, so skin cancer rates have risen. But now they've gone to the other extreme and they don't go in the sun at all. And if they go in the sun, they've got to have sunscreen on, they've got to have gloves on. In 2012, research started to come out that people who were wearing sunscreens, they doubled their risk of skin cancer because vitamin D protects us against skin cancer. Obviously, if you overdo the sun and you burn that skin again and again, it's going to start getting damaged. Well, it's damaged as soon as it's burned. But now we've gone to the other extreme of not having enough sun. There's something in the equation there. It's called common sense. It's not very common today. We've got to have common sense. Some people say, well, how much sun do you need? I say, well, how long is a piece of string? It depends on the colour of your skin. If you have blue eyes and light hair, you need to be a little bit more cautious. If you've got dark skin, you need a lot more sun. Vitamin D is essential. We need that vitamin D, and we get it from the sunshine. That's the way God planned it. Stop taking anything into the body that will harm it. It is probably this list here too, from the temperance list, that is one of the biggest contributing factors to autoimmune diseases today. I used to say in my lectures that we're exposed to about 30,000 new chemicals every year. I was reading recently 100,000 new chemicals every year. And they're coming in so many ways. Be careful what you clean your bathroom with. Be careful what you clean your dishes with. Be careful what you wash your clothes with. There are chemicals. You can get biodegradable. It's quite easy today. I know when I was in America, or I'm often there, I think I was there almost half the year last year, that you have shops like Trader Joe's, Sprouts, Whole Foods, and you can get great biodegradable cleaning products. Cleaning, all you need is sodium bicarbonate, white vinegar, and if it's really stubborn, put them together, you'll get a little fizz up and you can really scrub the place clean. Again, nip it in the bud. If it's cleaned every week, it doesn't require nasty things. You put bleach on mold, you create one of the most toxic combinations on the planet, so be very cautious on that. So what are some of the things that we have to keep away from? Who would have ever thought that we'd have to keep away from wheat? I don't think you have to keep away from wheat. I eat a little bit of wheat, but not much. But if I had an autoimmune disease, if I had Crohn's disease, if I had rheumatoid arthritis, if I had any serious condition, I would not eat it. If you don't have a serious condition, yeah, eat it, but just don't overdo it. Have it as a little bit. In Genesis 1:29, God tells Adam and Eve what to eat. He says, "Behold, I have given you every herb-bearing seed which is upon the face of the earth, and the tree, in the which of the tree is a fruit-bearing seed. To you it shall be for meat." So what's a herb-bearing seed? Well, there's your grain, there's your legumes, your beans, there's your nuts, there's your seeds, and your fruit-bearing seed, there's your nut. And then the last part of that verse, God said, "To you it shall be for meat." So it's a balance of all of those. When someone has cereal and toast for breakfast, sandwiches for lunch, pasta for tea, cookies, biscuits, donuts, that's a total overload of one seed. We need to be having the balance and to be eating them the way God made them. So be careful, because the food that you're having, it can have chemicals on it, Roundup or glyphosate. The World Health Organization in 2017 declared that it was a known human carcinogen. If you're not eating organic food, you can just about be guaranteed it will have Roundup on it. So be careful of the chemicals and the poisons. Look at your cleaning products. Look at what you're cleaning your teeth with, what you're washing your hair with. Because our skin is like millions of little pores or mouths, and everything that goes on that skin absorbs in. So not only chemicals, but also your refined sugar, also dairy. Remember, cow's milk is very good for baby calves. Also meat. You see, meat putrefies very quickly as soon as it's killed. And in the Garden of Eden, there was no meat. You know what that means? There'll be no meat in heaven, because there's no death. It requires a death to eat meat. Many people who sit down to their steak every night, they don't think about what it was or where it came from. A girlfriend of mine, they were meat eaters, and when her little 3-year-old boy realised that his chop was from a lamb, he stopped eating all meat. See, with children, it's really black and white, isn't it, out of the mouths of babes. It's important to look at your food and think, now, where did it come from? What's it made of? And that's something we don't often think about. A dog's gastrointestinal tract is about 1 metre long. A human's gastrointestinal tract is about 8 metres long. So dogs that eat meat, it's in and out very quickly. But not with humans. It takes a lot longer to get through, and on the process it's starting to putrefy. And as meat is broken down in the body, it gives off a very acid waste, and cancer and disease thrives is an acid environment. Too much acid foods causes a pH imbalance. We're getting back to the balance there. Also drugs. Remember, drugs never cure disease. They just change the form and location of disease. I think from my story with Tom, I showed very clearly when people come to our retreats, we don't stop the drugs. We say, you're the doctor, you're the owner of that body. Now, regarding this drug, if I were you, I would stop that because you can safely stop that. If I were you, I would not stop this one. So it's actually knowing what you can and you can't stop. There are doctors that will work with you on this. I have some friends who are doctors, excellent doctors. You know, there's some good plumbers, there are some good painters, there are some good builders, but there are not so good painters, not so good builders, not so good doctors. So you got to find one that will work with you there. Because remember, this is your body. It's a God-given right, is free choice and free will. That it's our choice what happens to our bodies. And remember, knowledge is power. Knowledge is easy to him that understands. So we're looking at the things that you can't take into the body. So make sure that you're sure in what is going into the body, on the food you're eating and what you're cleaning with. Alcohol. In America, you have your history of the prohibition. 1920 to 1933, alcohol was banned. It's a toxic poison. There's no safe dose of that. There's no safe dose of mercury. Mercury is also a toxic poison. It should never enter the human body. Ellen White's very clear on that. Do you know what that means? It should not be in the fillings in our mouth. If it is, we need to have them replaced with white fillings. Flu vaccines contain mercury, should never go into the human body. By the way, if the human body was designed to heal itself, we don't need to vaccinate it. Have a good look at what's in those vaccines. Have a look at the poisons that are in them. You've got neurotoxins like formaldehyde and aluminium. What they're also doing is they're affecting our DNA. Right inside the nucleus, in the middle of the cell, is our DNA. And our DNA is our genetic code. You see, we're constantly being remade. We're being remade according to the formula that's in the DNA. If you were to put all the information that's in this DNA, and what I've done here in this illustration is I've pulled the DNA out, and it can be pulled out to about 2 meters long, and then it's all coiled back in there. If you were to put all the information that's in that DNA into alphabetical language and put it into paperback books piled on top of one another, they would go to the moon and back a few times. I can hardly get my mind around that. Psalm 139 verse 14, the Bible says, I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvellous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. The only cell that this DNA isn't coiled up in the middle of is the blood cell. The red blood cell does not remake itself. The red blood cells are remade inside the bone marrow. So let's have a look at this DNA. A lot of information in that DNA, incredible library. And the information in that DNA determines the colour of our hair, the colour of our eyes, colour of our skin, our heights. I have 6 children. I have 3 boys and 3 girls. And my boys are never going to be 6 foot because their mother's only 5'2". They're taller than me. I think they're about 5'8", 5'9", something like that. When I was in Tennessee, it was about 2 years ago now, I never know who's going to pick me up from the airport. And I look around and I saw a man smiling at me, so I went up to him and he stood up and he just kept going. He was 6'10", this man. He said, Sister Barbara. We shook hands. I looked like a little girl next to him, and when I met his son was 6'6". So why isn't the son 6'10"? Because his mother was 5'3". So you see, we have 23 chromosomes from our mother, 23 chromosomes from our father. My father died 2 years ago, and he had not much grey hair at all. It was mostly black with a little bit of grey. My mother died when she was 51. She had no grey hair. That's why I have no grey hair. I'm one of 5 children. None of us have grey hair, and we're all in our 60s now. It's in the genes. Some say, I'm sick because it's in my genes. Genetics loads the gun. It's lifestyle that pulls the trigger. It's a very interesting study of genetics today. It's called epigenetics, the effect of our lifestyle, the food we eat, even our attitude on our DNA. In fact, one writer declared that parents are the genetic engineers of their children. That's why a couple, ideally, 2 years before they conceive, they detox, they get their body into good working order, so they've got a really good gene pool to give through to their children. What's the DNA made up of? The outside strands is made up of polysaccharides. And polysaccharides simply means many sugars. And many sugars is basically in everything we eat. The crossword bands is made up of amino acids. And amino acids is a breakdown from the protein that we eat. So for a vegetarian, the protein is in your legumes, your nuts, your seeds, your grains. That's why God said the seed, it shall be for meat. So the crossword bands are made up of amino acids, and the glue that glues these two together is minerals. The food with the highest mineral content is our vegetables, and of the vegetable kingdom, the greens, the dark green leafy vegetables, they're the highest in minerals. Hippocrates, called the father of medicine, he said, let food be your medicine and medicine be your food. And he didn't know what I've shown you there. Why am I mentioning the DNA right now? Because there are many things today that are damaging that DNA. Now, if that DNA is damaged, then the new cell is not going to be made right. Our eye cells, they're remade every, I think, 2 to 4 days. The cells that line our gastrointestinal tract every 3 to 5 days. Every month, a new skin. Bones every 3 months. Liver, it's about every 6 weeks. We're constantly being remade according to the formula. So what's interfering with the formula? A lot of the things in these lists here. So let's make the list of what can directly affect the DNA chemicals. Chemicals, and they can come in many forms, in our food, in the air, there's so many ways. Also, what can affect the DNA is mold. All through nature you see that mold can splice into the DNA of a plant and grow itself through the plant. What can also affect the DNA is artificial electricity. So we'll call it artificial electromagnetic field. We are electrical people. And so it's common sense that artificial, or sometimes it's called dirty electricity, interferes with the way our body is running. I was reading of an interview with a breast surgeon. He said it's alarming the amount of young girls who are getting breast cancer today, and it's in the breast where they put their phone into their bra. You can even buy sports bras today that have pockets for phones. I wonder how many are going to be having total hip replacements or femur problems, because you can also get a pocket to put the phone into the leggings, or what they jog with. But the breast tissue, we'll go back to breast tissue because it's particularly sensitive to electromagnetic field. So when a girl's at the computer all day, can you see the electromagnetic fields coming directly into the breast area? Also, they're finding female singers with the microphone. Maybe it's their job and they're singing for 5 hours a day, that the electromagnetic field there. Also, laptops. The worst place to put your laptop is on your lap. So there's the family jewels, male and female. They have found that girls that have laptops on their laps at 10 years of age, 14, 15, up to 20, when they fall pregnant in their 30s, 47% miscarriage in those girls that had that laptop on their lap. So these electromagnetic fields are disrupting the DNA. Mold can disrupt the DNA. Chemicals can disrupt the DNA. In 1976, Russia banned microwaves because of the studies that they'd done on microwaves and saw the devastating effect that it had on the electromagnetic field. Very interesting if you look at the figures in Russia or guidelines on children being exposed. They say under the age of 2, no exposure at all to electromagnetic field. Under the age of 7, 5 minutes a day. Under the age of, I think it's 12, 10 minutes a day. Under the age of 15, an hour a day. Up to 18 years, 3 hours a day. Now, I don't think that happens very much, does it? There's a whole lot of health problems. Donna Fisher has written, I think, 3 or 4 books showing the danger of electromagnetic field on humans. I really like her books because I'm not an electrician and I'm not a scientist, and a lot of the talk they have around this, it's a little bit over my head, but she puts it into everyday language, showing that many problems now are arising because of this. 80% of Americans sleep with their phones under their pillow. The pillow is no protection. Is this the reason why in Australia 7 suicides a day? In fact, since the lockdown with coronavirus, it's gone up to 10 a day. Suicides, and this is particularly in adolescent and teenage. We should be sleeping in an electromagnetic field-free zone. So there should be no phones in our room, no computers, no televisions. We will sleep a lot better when we don't have that dirty or artificial electromagnetic field interfering with the way that our body runs. We're looking at some of the things that damage the DNA, thus contributing to what they call autoimmune diseases. What also can damage the DNA is mineral deficiency. In fact, the research is showing that about 90% of DNA damage is caused by a mineral deficiency. How could people be mineral deficient? My understanding is we're eating a lot more fruit and vegetables than 50 years ago. Well, 50 years ago, the soil had twice the nutrients in it that it has today. The soil has been used too much, it's had too many chemicals put on it. And so when the soil's deficient, the food's deficient, and when the human being eats that food, they are deficient. And then they don't have the nutrients required to heal. That's why temperance is such an important law, not taking anything into the body that will harm it and taking in moderation the good things. Sleep. Dr. Matthew Walker, in his book Why We Sleep, he really opens the eyes and shows we need 8 hours sleep a night. You cannot heal without sleep. God meant us to be asleep when the night time comes. These electromagnetic fields are really interfering with that, because when someone is watching a movie or playing games on the computer or even answering emails, the blue light, it has a different frequency to the blue light from the sunlight, but it basically says to the brain, it's daytime, wake up. Very hard to sleep after that. Nourishing food. God meant us to take food into our body that will feed our cells. Our body must be well hydrated. Stress. We can put stress here. The research today is even showing that it can affect the way the DNA runs. And if you affect the way the DNA runs, then your body cannot be remade as God meant it to be remade. We live in a body that's designed to heal itself. And my illustration of Tom shows that even if you've been diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, don't take that on. In fact, in Job it says, the thing I feared the most I got. God says in 2 Timothy 1 verse 7, I have not given you the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. What does a sound mind do? It considers these things. It considers the basic laws that God has given us that will ensure that the body runs in optimum performance. And that's what God says in Romans 12, 1 and 2, he says, I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God. I'd like to suggest we've got 8 mercies here. By the mercies of God, that you present your bodies living sacrifices, holy and acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. I like that, reasonable service. It's reasonable because the winner is me. It's nice living in a body that works. And it will work if you're getting enough oxygen, if you're having daily sunshine, if you've stopped all of the things that are known to harm the body, if you go to bed early. Dr. Matthew Walker says 8 hours, not negotiable. But you've got a choice there. You've got 3 choices. You can go to bed at 8 and get up at 4, or you can go to bed at 9 p.m. and get up at 5 a.m. That's my favourite. Or you can go to bed at 10 p.m. and get up at 6. That's a bit tight for me. I like to get up at 5. I have an hour to do my Bible study and my prayer, and then I walk at 6 and then I eat at 7. I really like that schedule. But the only way I can get up at 5 is to eat breakfast like a king, lunch like a queen, go to bed early, sleep well, no electromagnetic field in my room. My husband's a skeptic. I finally convinced him. He's even turning our Wi-Fi off at night. It's a good idea to do that. And then you sleep well. And then when you wake up, you're revived. And then the first thing I reach for is my water. And then I get dressed. I have more water. And then I pray. And I give my life to God. Who better to give it to? And he's promised that he will bring peace. In John 14, he says, peace, it's about verse 27, he says, peace I give you. He said, my peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you. Not as the world gives, give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be dismayed. There is no need to be troubled or dismayed. Remember what Hebrews said? Cast not away therefore thy confidence. Have great confidence in this body. Have great confidence in the God that gave you that body. Have great confidence in the healing powers of the herbs, in the healing powers of the body. And when those herbs take into the body, they work together. Medicine calls it synergism. They work with the functioning of the human body. When you implement these laws, you will get the results. But remember, it may not be quick. You didn't get sick quick. In fact, often it takes 20 years to get sick. And with time, it's 40 years. Well, the good news is it won't take 40 years to turn around. It won't even take 20 years. In fact, he was only with us for 2 weeks and we saw incredible turnaround. He wasn't healed, but he was a long way along the track. He went home with a big smile on his face. Remember? Prove all things. 1 Thessalonians 5:21. Prove all things and hold fast to that which is good. People say to me, Barbara, do you ever step sideways? I say, why would I? I feel so good. I feel so good on these laws. And if I get sick, which is not much, I tripped the other day and my foot was very sore. So I did hydrotherapy. 3 minutes hot, 30 seconds ice cold 3 times. Wow, reduced the pain by 50%. Grated potato poultice on it, gets the inflammation down. How I love those simple remedies that God gave. Now, I didn't do it the next day. I didn't have to because I wasn't on crutches anymore and I was walking quite well. See, I listened. You listen to the body. You do hot and colds, 2 hours later it's painful again. What does the body say? Do another hot and cold. Do another hot and cold. And you watch the person. Whenever I'm doing hot and cold on someone, I put their foot in my hand and I watch them as I put the foot into the water. My hand feels it first and you watch their face. If they go too hot, that's fine. Put a little bit more cold in. You work with the sun. You work with the person. Every medical missionary should study the person, should investigate. Look at the history. One lady said, but I don't like water. So I investigate. She said, I cannot drink a whole glass of water at once. I said, no, neither can I. But you know your body likes it better if you have a mouthful here and a mouthful there and a mouthful there. She said, I could do that. We have no reserve tank on the back. The only water that goes into the body is the water you put in. So you just got to work out how you can get it in. Fresh air is vital. Sunshine every day. If your skin's very dark, you can go out there for a long time. I can't go out for a long time. Don't take anything into the body that will harm it. And take in moderation the good things. Go to bed early. Remember your choices. 8 p.m. to 4 a.m., 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. or 10 to 6. Nourishing food. Tom had an irritation in his gut, so it mostly had to be cooked at first, but now he can have some more food. Water. You just got to get it in. Trust in God. Give him everything. He is worthy to be trusted. In Isaiah 26 verse 3, he has promised, he says, Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, he whose mind is stayed upon thee, because he trusteth in thee. And there's one beautiful verse, there's many verses, but I like this one, especially it was good for Tom. It's Ezekiel 36:36, that the heathen that are left round about might know that I, the Lord God, will build the ruined places and plant again that which was desolate. For I, the Lord God, hath spoken it, and I will do it. Poor Tom had a desolate gut. It was highly inflamed. And God has promised, when we give the body the right conditions, we will have his blessing on it. And he is the greatest physician the world has ever known, and he has never lost a case.
Barbara, I'm just so thankful for the information that you shared with us on how we could assist our bodies in opening our eyes to autoimmune conditions. I'm just, again, thankful for all of you who are watching these presentations. You know, we have more fabulous presentations that will be airing very soon, so please stay tuned. And it's never too late to share this information with your friends and loved ones. We look forward to seeing you soon. God bless.